Welcome to the Finance and Operations track. Stay tuned for 3 days of learning, giveaways, and fun. A special thank you to our keynote speakers for sharing their accessibility and technology stories. And thank you for being part of the Dynamics user group community. Let's welcome our first speaker of the day, Faisal, a Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations technical lead. Today, he will be presenting D365 FO Environments Governing. Please stick around after Faisal's session for a live Q&A.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Dynamics Con and Dynamics user group today. And I would like to big thanks to Dynamics Con and Dynamics user group for giving me this opportunity yet another time today. I remember it was last year, but time has flew very fast over during the pandemic situations. It seems like it was yesterday when I did speak to at Dynamics Con. But again, we are here, and this time I'm going to talk about Microsoft Dynamics Finance and Operations Environment Governing. So we have set a goal and objective here, which I'm going to run through with you. So we will start from a very uh, down, very first step, and then I'll take you to the objective where we are heading to with all the environment planning from finance and operations and dataverse. I have to mention that the dataverse, there is a reason which we will talk about as we go forward with this presentation today. So stay tuned with me for the next 40 minutes. We are going to talk about what is the environment planning, what are the key concepts, and how we can integrate finance and operations environments with dataverse environments. Few things to remember here. We are not going to talk about licensing and all SLAs request. There are out so many talks from Microsoft Fast Track Talks and Microsoft Learn, where you can just go and learn about all these licensing and SLAs. So let's get started. First, about myself. My name is Faisal Farid, and I'm working as a Microsoft Dynamics 365 technical architect at DXC Technology. I'm an active blogger. You will see me on every day posting few stuff on LinkedIn, on Twitter. If you want to follow me on there, please do follow me on my LinkedIn and Twitter. I do write blogs there where I have mentioned my blogs are link here. You can follow me on my blogs too. Whatever I have been doing virtually or physically, presentations and recordings, everything is available on my YouTube channel. To do subscribe to my YouTube channel, you will definitely get some support and help from there. I'm an active speaker, speaking globally nowadays. I'm a mentor, running a couple of user groups in Australia and Pakistan, providing mentorship there. And I'm the active community ambassador for Microsoft Dynamics community. Now, this is where I started my career. I was born in Pakistan, and then I joined my first job in Pakistan. I didn't stay quite long in Pakistan. It was only a 2 and 3 years of experience back in Pakistan, but it was a worth experience. Then I got a job back in Saudi Arabia, in Saudi Arabia, and then I stayed there for a couple of years. Then, after it was very hot in Saudi Arabia, and after I decided to move to the New Zealand there, and it was a very big change. As you can see, it's a different part of the world, climate wise, also the distance wise, and the culture wise. It was a big change for me. I stayed in New Zealand, and for the project purpose, I moved to UAE. UAE is very small, sitting over here. So I stayed here for 1.5 year there for a project, and then I decided to move back to Australia. So since then, I have been living in Australia for last 6 years, and now I'm an Australia citizen and happily living over here. And In last year, August, I decided to start Pakistan Power Platform and Dynamics 65 user group. I'm now the community leader back in for that particular group. And in January this year, I was awarded as Microsoft Dynamics Community Spotlight Award. I'm also helping different communities across the world to speak into their own native languages. This is where I did refer that thought to Molly at DynamicsCon, and it was very well heard and listened there. And we do have more sessions in the people's native language. So stay tuned with those ones too. Now back to Australia here. In Australia and New Zealand, I have also been running a finance and operations and power platform professionals group here, where we have been helping people to upskill and come forward and support each other. So this is called ANZ Dynamic 365 FinOps team. I'm the founder and the leader of that group. So as you can see, there are so many things I've been doing since last 1.5 years. Now let's set the objective for today. What we are going to talk about is I will be setting the foundation. What is the environment planning? So going back to the actual topic for today, environment planning and how you govern the environments for finance and operations and data works implementation. We will set the foundation first, and then I will talk about the key concepts about what is required, what you need to understand for the environments. What is the tier 1 environment, what is the tier 2 environment, what is the cloud hosted environment, what is the Microsoft hosted environments, all these things, and what is the storage, and so many other things which we will be discussing down the track of this session today. Where you can host the environments, what are the environment types, as we discussed tier 1 tier 2 there. And then I'll run through a typical environment plan, that is a sample environment plan file which we got from Microsoft. You can I'll share a links at the end of this presentation, so do stay tuned with us. And then I'll just run through a standard offer, whatever we get as a standard offer from Microsoft. Then I'll summarize and tips and tricks. And if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to type your questions into our live chat there, and I'm happy to answer all the questions at the end of this presentation today. Now, what's I'm gonna talk about why environment planning is important and what environment planning should include here. First and foremost important point is environment planning is a living document. It lives throughout the whole implementation of your project. It does not end once you go live. After you go live, you have to update, you need to update all your environments with the current status of the project. What environment do you need now, and what environment you have to deallocate. So this is a very important document, and uh, it actually explains you why you need an environment, when you need an environment, and which type of environment you need. You have to have a matrix, which we will see shortly into our Excel file, where we will see uh, which that Excel file will explains you which environment do you need there. This thing actually comes to a point why it is important. What if we do not do environment planning? What would happen? It will directly impact your project budget. If you do not have environments, your development environments ready, then definitely you are going to delay the project timelines. And also, if you do not have your project, if you do not have your environments ready, then and if you of correct type, if you need a tier 1 environment, the other, and then you have deployed the tier 2 environment, which is a big expensive compared to the tier 1 environment, then it will directly impact onto the project budget here. It's a SaaS world. It's not like AX 2012 back in the days, where you get the executable file and run the environment, deploy the environment by yourself in 2 hours. you have to raise a request with Microsoft, and this is where the lead time is come to a play. So you have to consider a lead time so the environment is ready on time, so it should not impact anything onto the project's deadline. So plan properly and plan at the right time. This document actually helps you what you need to do in future and what environment you need. There are so many risks involved if you do not do this environment planning correctly, that actually lead to the project activities delay, and then as we talked about it, impact onto the project budgets. So if you do not have the environments ready at the right time, then the project phases can go wrong into the it can go wrong, and then it will impact onto the complete deliverables and the timeline of the projects. As we did speak earlier, there are so many environments factors involved which can impact onto your environment plan. The budget is the most important point here, because if you do not have a budget, then you cannot plan your environments. So at the start of your project, think about what sort of the environments you need, and then put a request to the client or a customer or an end user and say these are the environments we need down the track of your implementation, and that would be the budget, so that they can plan their budget ahead. It really important to consider about all the organization structure into your implementation. It comes down, if you are implementing a finance and operations and data wares into a big organization, there will be some regulatory requirements and global rollouts. So that actually impacts directly with your organization structure. If you are dealing with a client who deals only locally, things can be managed easily. But this is something you have to consider down the track of environment planning. Project scope and release plan, that is really important. You have to think what is the project scope, what are the there are so many other factors, integrations and different type of systems involved into the big implementations. Then you have to find out what is the scope of that project, so that we can plan ahead with the environments, what sort of environments do we need, and who will be the owner and the environment manager of these environments there. As we did speak, project timelines, these definitely may get impact with your environment plannings, and if it also depends on your project complexity. So these are the factors which I wanted to check with you, uh, which I wanted to explain you, and so that the you have to think about whenever you are doing your environment planning and environment governing, you think about all these points ahead beforehand. Now consider these points before it gets too complex. So first and foremost, I'll just take from the first step from the bottom, and then this actually explains you the complexity. So uh, do not reach to that stage and then think about, okay, what I'm gonna do now. Start from the first step. What would be the cost of the add-on environment? Add-on environments is something that which do not come as a standard subscription. We will talk about a little bit later in this presentation, but add-on environment is something like you can buy based on to your subscriptions, and how much cost it's gonna cost you with to purchase a new environment there. How you can deploy a new environment? Will it be a cloud hosted environment? Will it be a Microsoft hosted environment? At what stage or phase of the project you need an environment? Do you need it onto the analysis phase, implement, or the design phase? What type of environment do you need? And most importantly, when you will be deploying the environment, check about the data centers. Wherever whatever the data center is closest to you, deploy your environments there. Who will be the owner of the environment and maintain user and configurations? You have to decide right on the start of the project. so that there will be no confusion in deploying the environments. There will always be some lead time you have to think about. If you need an environment, raise a request with Microsoft 1 week prior, and that you will have that environment ready when you need it. Some key points here, some important understanding which we use for the cloud offerings. So first term is organization here, which is really that company which is typically identified one or more public domains like contoso.com or dynamicscon.com. So these are the different domains. Each subscription assigned to that organization actually, which is really an agreement that you have with Microsoft to use those cloud platforms or services. So we have a SaaS solution here, which are Microsoft 365 and Microsoft Dynamics 365, and both solutions are per user license basis. When it comes down to the licenses, there are different type of subscriptions which are platform as a service and infrastructure as a service, such as Azure services. These are also cloud hosted services, and you pay as you go with all those services. So licenses are those individual specific SKUs that you purchases and allow user to exit that service. So whatever the subscription you have, you buy a license and assign those license to the users to access those services there. All the users count is actually live within your Azure Active Directory. So now that this Azure Active Directory, as we can see at the last point here, tenants, so that now the tenants represents your organization in your Azure Active Directory. So we started with the organizations here. So each tenant actually represents your organization with an Azure Active Directory. So these are the few core points which you, if you want to learn more about all these ones, head to Microsoft Docs article. It's a very detailed article over there. You can check from there too. Now, coming back to the environment types here for finance and operations first. So first we will look into the uh, what is the standard offering Microsoft is giving you when you buy at least 20 licenses for finance and operations. Then we will talk about how you can buy and add on an extra of environment for your implementation. Then we will see what are the cloud hosted environments, how you can connect with your cloud hosted environments, and then what are the other options if you don't want to go with the Azure and go with the cloud hosted environment. You can download all your VHDs there. Now, quickly switching gears to the Dataverse environments. What type of environment type you need for the Dataverse? What is the default environment when you go with the Microsoft Dynamics Finance and Operations subscription? You get a free subscription with the Power Platform, and you have one environment in Dataverse which is set as a default environment there. What is the scope of that environment, how you can use that environment in what, and then if you want to go with a trial environment, what can be the process over there with the environment type. This is the default environment. You can have a default type of environment, you can have a development type of environment, and this is all I'm talking into the Dataverse, which is the Power Platform there. And you have a Power Platform and you choose a different environment types there. One comes with a default environment, then there is you have your development environment, you can deploy your trial environment, you will have your production environment and the sandbox environment. What is the default environment here? This is a single default environment for each tenant. So in the closest Azure so you deploy this environment into the closest Azure required to the Azure Active Directory tenant. So the closest data center, this is where you deploy this environment. So the environment scope, this is you have your environment may or may not have a database. It really depends on to your implementation. If you want to do some sort of a integration between different environments and you think you need a database, you can define a database for an environment there. So you all your customer engagement apps, these are based onto your dataverse, so you need a database for those apps there. uh, you can definitely deploy a trial environment to test all your new features and build your POC there. Now, come back to the finance and operation. What comes with the standard offer here? With the standard offer, you get these three type of environments here. One is the this production environment, and then you got a one sandbox environment, which is a sandbox acceptance test environment, and then you can buy all the additional instances. So prior to few months. There Microsoft used to provide you a one development environment as a standard offer, but that is not the case anymore. Microsoft does only provide you a one production and sandbox environment as a standard offer there. Your production environment is you have your environment and the tenant there. It is a high available and disaster recovery environment. Your sandbox environment, it will be one environment with a tier 2 environment. We will talk about what is a tier 2 environment. This cannot be used for the production environment, not recommended at all. You can use for UAT and integration testing here. And then we have the additional licenses here. Sandbox environment, you can purchase sandbox environment, you can purchase a single server instances, and then you can do you can purchase your Azure subscription, and you can connect with your all cloud hosted environments. So the tier 2 environments here, which comes with a 20 GB SQL Azure storage. In the production environment, it comes with the 40 GB file storage. This is the standard offer you get when you buy at least 20 users. Similarly, on the Dataverse side, what you get as a standard offer, you get the production environment, you get a sandbox environment, but you also get a one development environment. So the production environment, it's one included with the F1. So one production in one environment, which is included with the FNO subscription, and one environment. If you deploy your HR production, if you go with the HR or tenant subscription, you get a one HR production environment in Dataverse too. It is also highly available and disaster recovery, and you can link to an existing CDS, or you can deploy a new one, a new environment too. Sandbox environment is the one which is the when you buy a HR subscription or a talent subscription from Microsoft, you get a one HR environment from Dataverse too. You can start with your data sandbox environment, and then later, once you are happy with all the processes, everything is working, you can convert that sandbox to the production environment. And you can always buy multiple add-ons environment for the development here. These environments come with the 20 GB of storage file and the 20 GB of database capacity. And as of now, there will be a new announcements happening from Microsoft, but that will be a part of the future. You also get 2 GB unlock capacity there. It also comes down to what is a request type and allocation for each and every environment. So do consider about all these request limits and allocations. This is a sample file which I have taken from a Microsoft Docs site. It what it actually explains you in this purple circle here. It actually explains you an FNO environment, and a red triangle actually explains you a CDS, which is a Dataverse environment. uh, at what stage you need an environment here. So if you go to the test and training environment, which is of which is the tier 2 environment here, and then you need a sandbox environment from the Dataverse side, you need these two environments here. And the production is actually a sized base. uh, there is a concept everyone thinks about. My production environment is always a tier 4 or tier 5 environment, but that's not a case. Microsoft size your production environment based on to your estimates. So whatever the estimates you have filled in the LCS, you have provided those to Microsoft review that one, and based on to your requirements and transaction per hour, Microsoft provides you a production environment. So if you talk about quickly for the development environment, it's a tier one environment, it's a development environment. It does not come with a standard subscription here. Only these two environment come with a standard subscription. If you need a less complex project, definitely you need to have a development environment for, and also for the more complex project, you need to have your development environment ready at the first step. Build environment, it can be used as a cloud hosted environment from finance and operations side, and also you can use the Azure build automation. uh, but this is not necessarily be required from the first day of the project implementation, but you need to have this environment ready. Similarly, as we see multiple environment types here, we have the gold configuration, we have the data migration, we have the performance testing, training environment, system integration testing. So one thing which I wanted to highlight here is the system integration testing. And once we get the test environment, which is the system testing, there is a big difference between that system testing and system integration testing. If you are implementing finance and operations with multiple application integrating with finance and operations, and then you have your system ready, you need to test each and every separate system, then it's called a system integration testing. This is where you need to have at least two, or tier 2 or tier 3 environment. For your performance testing, Microsoft recommends you to have a tier 4 or tier 5 environment, which is quite similar to a one production environment, although this will be an expensive, little bit expensive environment. But you can test your environment performance into in a similar environment as you will have for the production environment. So these are the simple sample environment plan. uh, I would recommend like print this one and put onto your desk, so that you remember at what stage and what phase of the project you need this environment. There are links given over here in our slides. You can check all the links for more details from there. Now check. Let's talk about what is a tier one versus tier two and higher environments here. So the tier one environment, which is typically a development environment, you deploy your cloud hosted environment as a tier one environment. Microsoft does not provide you any tier one environment now. It has to be either cloud hosted environment, or you can download the vst file here. So the tier 1 environment is the single box environment. Single box environment means all your aos sql server, all your services will be on a one vm machine. uh, as as we talked about, it will be a SQL server. It either be a cloud hosted or a local VSD. You can use this environment as a dev environment and a build environment. That is a low cost environment. You can start and stop whenever you need. So it's completely controlled by you. Tier 2 environment and higher environment, which could be tier 3, 4 and 5 environments, these are the multi-box environments, and these will be deployed only by Microsoft. You cannot deploy, you cannot have your tier 2 and above environment onto your cloud hosting environments. These will be running under Azure database. Always Microsoft host it. You can use it for performance, data migration and test purpose, and it's little bit expensive. As we talked about tier 1 and tier 2 environments, let's talk about what are the hosting options for your dev and build environments first. So onto your left hand side of the picture, you see this is the dev environment, which is a tier 1 environment we talked about. The dev environment could be a cloud hosted or a local VHD. What would happen if we deploy this to as a cloud hosted environment? Cloud hosted environment, it's an integration development. Uh, you can deploy code packages from your LCS. You can deploy code data packages from your LCS. It will live within LCS. You can perform all the actions through the to LCS. This is low cost on maintenance. You can start and stop at any time. You pay as you go. So whenever you stopped it, you will not be paying anything. You will get a public URL for that environment. You can give access to anyone out external or internal of your organization. A local VHD is that's the concept where you download a VHD file and you have to perform all the steps. You have a networking experience, or your organization should have someone who can help you in configuring the VHD file here. So all these points, this is not the integration in development environment. You will not have access to the LCS. You have to apply all the updates, everything by yourself. It's highly maintenance. You have to maintain it yourself, and absolutely you have to consider the hardware cost you will be bearing for this environment. So similarly, we got the build environment here, cloud hosted environment, and then Microsoft recently introduced Microsoft hosted Azure pipelines. Cloud hosted environments is you can deploy this environment by yourself, as you did for the development cost. Cloud hosted environments, it's a dedicated VM. It actually, you will have more features into your cloud hosted environment for your build compared to the Azure hosted agent. It really depends on to the requirements of your project. If you are running a sys-test framework, if you want to run some test cases, you want to include your database should be synchronized when you are building, definitely you need a cloud hosted environment. Excuse me. It's an unlimited use. You can, it's your environment. You will be paying as you use. So unlimited use, and you can run all the unit tests here. Microsoft hosted build pipelines, it only runs with X++ code. It does not allow you to build to synchronize the database, and also does not allow you to run the unit test here. Now, let's talk about a little bit more onto the tier 1 and tier 2 environments here. So we got a picture here which explains you, we got these type of different tier environments here: tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, tier 5. So tier 1, tier 2 environment, sorry, this is called the standard acceptance test environment. So I'll show you in next few slides where you can find out by looking into the environment names. This is a tier 2 or tier 3 or tier 4 environment. This question most of the times comes, a customer wants to understand what is the tier of my environment. So if you see the standard acceptance test name, this is a tier 2 environment. If you see a premier acceptance test, this is your tier 3 environment. If you see the standard performance test, this is your tier 4 environment. And if you see the premier performance test, this is your tier 5 environment, which is most of the time is a production environment. Based on to these tiers, as we go up to the higher into the tiers, you see a difference in different number of users here. In tier 2 you have 30 to 40 users. Similarly, 40 to 70 for premier acceptance test, and then 70 to 150 for the standard performance test, and then we have 150 plus users for the premier performance test. So as you can see, higher you go, you get the more options, more performance for the environment. This is where I would highly recommend, if you are doing your performance testing, some sort of data migrations, at least deploy your tier 4 environment to test the performance of the environment onto the correct tier where your production environment will be. It will be a little bit expensive, but it will give you a lot of confidence and peace of mind, so that you will find out beforehand what performance issues I'm going to suffer when I deploy this much of data, I upload this much of data into my production environment. Now, if we got a concept here called self-service deployments. So self-service deployments is actually only available for your tier 2 environments or tier 3 environment, all sandbox type of environments. Very powerful feature Microsoft has introduced as a self-service deployments. Prior to that, whenever you needed to deploy a sandbox environment, you had to raise a request with Microsoft, and it could take up to 8 hours or a two couple of days to deploy an environment for you. Now it only takes a 30 minutes or an hour maximum, to deploy a sandbox environment and your environment is ready, because this is all controlled by you. You are just doing, I need this environment, that would be it. One drawback of having self-service environment, uh, all the environments now going forward with the sandbox or tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 production environment, you do not have the remote desktop access to those environments. You cannot log into those environments and rdp to those environments. If you want to access the database, you need to get a just in time access that will stay for 8 hours, and then you can perform your sql database actions, processes, queries within that environment. uh, this is if you want to perform some performance issues, you can do directly into your self-service environments using the environment monitoring tool. You can perform all your debugging options or operations there, and you can also download your database and restore into your tier 1 environment. It all the options are available there. Last thing, you now with the self-service environments, you always deploy a one package to any environment, which is a one version. So the concept is, if you have a vanilla version of the solution, which is a Microsoft version, and also you have your ISP solutions and your customization, you will be deploying a one combined package which contains all the Microsoft's code, your ISPs, and your customization into one package, and then you deploy that into the another environment, which is your sandbox and the production environment. It actually requires a less downtime to deploy a one complete package at one go. So this is how the LCS looks like. If you have access to the LCS and you have access to the any project over here, and then you see the LCS over here. This is a hamburger, and then icon here. This is the name of the project, and these are the environments which we have deployed for this particular project. You can see the production environment. This is the in production environment here, and then it's a deployed state, and then we have the standard step acceptance test. This is where I was referring to. If you see this standard acceptance test, which means this is a tier 2 environment. So if you log into LCS, you see this name sitting over here, you can easily identify this is your standard acceptance test. uh, that's if you go to the this lifecycle hamburger, and then you go to the cloud hosted environments. You click onto this one, and then you will find out this window over here, and it actually lists down all the cloud hosted environments which are using your own Azure connector here. So you need to perform some steps to link Azure and DevOps and with LCS, so that whenever the environment you host it into this one, you will be billed against your subscription into Azure DevOps. Couple of steps how you can deploy a new cloud hosted environment. When you go to the previous screen which I mentioned over here, the cloud hosted environment, you click onto this add button plus add button here, and that will be your first step. You select what version you want to, and then you choose a topology here. I want to dev and test, and then where you we normally choose D12v2 a size here. This is important. The higher size you go, the more cost it will be for you. So think about when you deploying the environment, what would be the size of the environment, and who is going to use this environment for what purpose. Then this is how we see the environments for the tier 2 and the above environments. This is the same screen which we saw earlier. This is your tier 2 environments and production environment sitting over here. The first time when you have your LCS available, these environments will not be configured, and you have to configure those environments. This is how you will see it like this. The premier as performance test, this is a tier 4 environment. Premier acceptance test tier 3 environment, you need to click onto the configure button here, and it will take you what would be the name of the environment and there will be a couple of attributes you need to provide, and then if the environment will be ready in 30 minutes or a one hour maximum. So now if we go to the sample planning example here, if I'll quickly open an Excel file. So this is we see the exam sample provided by Microsoft. You can download it from my Microsoft Docs site there, and uh, you see different type of environments available here. At what phase you need an environment. You need an environment onto your initialization of the phase, or you need an environment for your analysis phase, design phase, deployment, and support. Once you have your deployment phase, as you can see here, we have defined a go live date with the 23rd of June. So you have defined all the dates here, and then within the second step you go down to the further uh, different steps where you define, okay, I need this environment at what date for what purpose here. So you can define each and every purpose and the date within this sheet here. Definitely this is just a sample here. You can update this sample based on to your own requirements. It also defines you what is your integration environment. If you are using a different integration with customer engagement, with finance and operations and dataverse, you can define all the different type of environments and type within this file, and you can share this one with your client. And this is, again, as I said earlier, this is a living document. You need to update this document throughout the whole life of the project. And at the end of the day, you will have this environment plan sitting like this is your environment. What is your finance and operations environment? What is your uh, data verse environment, and so forth. Now, so coming back to my next. So what we have discussed over here, we talked about what would be the environment planning here, what we have looked into this uh, a sample file. So this sample file helps you to define the phases and timelines and milestone of each and every environment for throughout the whole project. It also provides you to define the activities that require the supporting environment. Means it actually gives you a complete a matrix overview, or a bird view when you need an environment at what date. Then you can easily define all your activities for that particular environment. So quickly run through a summary here. Plan early. So you this is uh, this is going to impact your the project timeline very badly. So plan early. So if you have multiple environments available, reuse those environments at the different stages of the project. Keep it simple. Do not over complex your environment. Keep it simple with your branching stuff, and uh, you will be able to handle it very easily using all the available tools from LCS. LCS is a very powerful tool, and then if you keep it simple, you keep following the best practices from Microsoft, definitely it will be very easy for you. Always consider a lead time, as you know, as we did mention about, if you need your production environment ready in next couple of weeks, plan it now. Identify tiers, what tier your environment would be, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and most importantly, check who will be the owner of the environment. This is a checklist I have taken from a Microsoft Fast Track uh, Tech Talk, and print this one. I found this one is a very handy, very useful. So I would recommend watch the environment planning tech talk from Microsoft. It's a very useful, very detailed. Uh, I could not go more into that detail, but if you want to learn more about those ones, do watch those tech talks and go through this environment planning checklist here. So with this one, I would like to thank you to DynamicsCon again for giving me this opportunity. And if you have any questions, maybe after this call, and after the, if I will not have enough time to answer all your questions into a live chat today, please do connect me onto my LinkedIn, and I'm happy to answer all the questions to you. With this one, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for listening to me. I'll check if there are any comments, any questions for me to answer. All right, so I'm just trying to find out where I can see all my questions here. If there is any questions. Well, I just tried to. So, hope you may have enjoyed my session today. It's all about Microsoft Dynamics Finance and Operations and Dataverse environments planning. So, as you may have seen in my presentation, it's really important to plan your environments early and with the proper and the right tier. All right, so I'm just joining. I'll just try to find out if there's any further questions for me. If not, then I'll just take it. So, I'll stay here. Twenty 2021. All right, so I don't see further questions here. So what I can do, I can talk about a little bit about environment plannings there. What we have learned today about Microsoft Dynamics Finance and Operations in Dataverse is uh, you plan early your environments, you choose your right tier for your environments, and whatever you get as part of your uh, s- standard offer from Microsoft, you just get it, you use it properly. What we also have noticed, you get now with finance and operations, you get only two environments, which is your sandbox environment and your production environment. We used to get a development environment earlier, but that has stopped for now. Anything about the Dataverse? Whenever you have your finance and operations subscription, you get your default environment from the Dataverse site. There's another point which we discussed about in environment governing.
Hi, Faisal.
So, hey, Molly.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. How are
Oh,
you?
good. I'm doing great. Well, we have some questions in the chat for you, and I'm not sure that you're able to see them, so I wanted to make sure we got you to the right place.
Oh yeah, thank you, thank you.
Yes.
I'm just a little bit sleepy right now.
Yeah, I know it's very late. If our wonderful F&O community knows, Faisal is a new dad, so he's had some a little less sleep lately. So yes, thank you for jumping on so late with us, Faisal. I was just going to make sure that you're in Brella and in the stream tab under the F&O stream, and that's where you'll see all the questions for your session.
Yep. So I was there. I don't see further questions. So
Did you see all the questions in the chat before?
let me. Okay.
Do you see the chat there?
Yep. So I'm just looking it
Perfect.
now.
If you
Thanks for
scroll up,
referring.
we've got some great questions in here.
Ah, good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. What's going on? And so thanks for joining my YouTube channel, Madeline. I just accepted your LinkedIn accept also. Thanks for all the good lucks. As Molly did mention, a little bit sleepy, have very little sleep today. Then comes Microsoft and decide for tier one environment. Yeah, Adrian is talking about tier one environment is gone. Yes, as I did speak into my session, Microsoft is not providing you any tier one environment with a default subscription. You will only be getting your production and one sandbox environment. So did Microsoft getting rid of including development machines cause problems for anyone? Not sure about what problems everyone is having individually, but if you are talking about every developer still needs a one development environment, which is this is still a requirement. So if you have multiple developers working onto your project, and you still need multiple development environment, each for individual a developer. So that's how it's still there. Anyone in the chat deployed a tier 4 or tier 5 environment? Yes, we have deployed tier 4 environment for one of our performance testing. So for that one, we talked with the fast track team, and they helped us to deploy the tier 4 environment, which definitely I did mention into my presentation at some point. It's really helpful to have the tier 4 environment because it gives you a better performance, a very close performance to your production environment. It's a little bit expensive, but it will give you a more real-time performance close to the production environment. And as I did mention, your production environment will not always be a tier 5 environment. It depends on to your size or your transactions. Whatever the file estimates you have filled into your LCS, Microsoft will review it and will deploy the production environment based on to those tiers. For any project, regardless of tier, user participation in CRP, UAT, and whatever acronyms you use for testing is the key. Too many projects do not engage the right user in testing, and then yes, there's just a comment over there. Thank you for there are so many newcomers, so I'm totally open to help them and answer the questions if they want. Please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to answer all the questions if there will be any further question after this call. We sometimes will add the cost by use hour to those and estimate an overall cost of the environment during our proposal process. So for that one, I would always recommend to use your cloud hosted environment if you are talking about the development environment. But other than all your sandbox environments and production environment will always be Microsoft subscription environment. And these are self-service environments, very useful. Even if you want to deploy a new sandbox environment nowadays, it takes around 30 minutes or 1 hour to deploy a new environment.
Microsoft is trying to.
So that's you are most welcome, everyone.
Faisal, can you hear me
yes.
now?
Yep, I can hear you.
Oh, great. I just wanted to say we have just about 1 more minute if you want to say goodbye. And I just wanted to share all of the community support for you. You're getting a lot of love in the chat and on Twitter. So great presentation.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, so thank you so much for all your time and joining me today. There are so many more questions as expected. It's a very broad topic, and this is the core of each implementation. Without having environments, you cannot implement anything. Feel free to reach out to me if you still have any questions, and I really thanks from my bottom of my hand, from my bottom of my heart is to DynamicsCon for giving me this opportunity again to speak at this platform. So do subscribe to DynamicsCon, and all the recordings will be available on DynamicsCon channel very soon. Thank you.